Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S here, back with a video. Hope everyone's well wherever you are. I didn't upload any videos yesterday. I hope some people out there missed me, but I was out yesterday and I did. But anyway, yeah, so I talked before about Roma, and I hope to make as many videos as I can about Roma and who I hope to invest in the club. As I would love for Roma to become the new Galacticos, the Giallorossi Galacticos. But today I want to focus on a specific thing for Roma, which would be who I hope to invest in the club. So I'm going to try and get on with it anyway. This is part one, ideas or points, or thoughts number 1 to 10. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope Roma fans and those who want to see input in investment in Italian football generally will check out these videos, even football fans generally, and as many people as possible really, all being well, and hopefully it won't be too cringeworthy. So here are some of the groups I hope to invest in the club, hopefully to a mutual benefit. So hopefully they'll benefit. They can network with each other, for instance, and hopefully they'll benefit from investing as well in the club. So I hope that the club, before I move on to this, I'm going to say in the intro, I hope the club will acquire investment from all possible sources of funding, all possible legal sources of funding. So any legal funding they can get, any potential investors who can legally invest, and investing as much as they can legally invest with given financial fair play, FFP, and all that kind of stuff. So here goes. So number 1, due to my love of alliterations and patterns and things like generally, any company or potential investors, investment firms, investors, generally investment firms, investment vehicles, as I call them, sometimes investment vehicles, portfolios, banks, businesses, and even entire nations and whatnot. I would love to invest in Roma. Those that begin with R, I was going to say, I forgot to say any company, any potential investment firm, investment vehicle, business, organization, association, and basically any of those businesses, investors, associations, organizations, and even entire nations, sovereign wealth funds or whatnot, that begin with R, or even generally, whoever can legally invest as much as they legally can. I dream to invest in Roma. Number 2, I would also love for Dubai to invest in Roma. I think that'd be pretty cool to see what they could do, and as many Arab nations on that note as possible. So Dubai to invest in Roma. Another pattern I have as well as alliterations is like, and I know I've mentioned this a while back, but any in a sense, I have this in a sentence. I have this weird sort of thing where I say the first word in a sentence, I like it to be, if at all possible, something that reminds me of the number 1, the second, preferably number 2, the third, 3, the fourth, 4, and that kind of thing. So, for instance, Qatar to invest in Roma, 2 being the second, Dubai to invest in Roma, and that kind of thing. Qatar Sports Investments for AS Roma, or the PIF for AS Roma, and that kind of thing. Number 3, any potential, any potential investor who can invest within the rules of FIFA, UEFA, and whatever other rules and laws there are, generally. So any who can legally invest, maybe through like finding loopholes, different names. So for instance, I often mention how, as well as FFP, financial fair play, there's also rules on multi-club ownership. So you can't own a club that's in the same competition. But I think it would be interesting if, let's say, even the City Group who own Man City, if even a company like that or an investment vehicle like that could find a loophole, maybe have a different sort of company name in their country that they, as long as they do it legally. I don't want to say encourage any sort of illegal activity or anything like that. But basically any sort of legal way that they can do so, if they can find out a legal framework or loophole or whatever way they could invest, but under different names or things like that. I think that would be interesting. Number 4, so I hope when some investors invest, others will also invest. But again, I love for not just one company or one organization, as you can probably tell, to invest. I hope it'll be like a new thing where so many different companies can have different shares and equity I mean, that probably already kind of happens to an extent, but I'd love for like the PIF, as I say, PIF for Roma, perhaps Qatar Sports Investment for Roma, Qatar to invest in Roma, Dubai to invest in Roma, and basically all sorts of different companies and organizations and that kind of thing. And rather controversially, I would love for Russia to be, I mean, they've been obviously sanctioned, and there's been international pressure being put on, which has been put on them, and FIFA possibly bound to pressure, I suppose, maybe have banned them from sports, which I think is a bit unfair, because if you can do that to one country, why not to every country that goes to war, including Britain, America, China, or any other nation, Israel or Palestine or any other nation? Why not do the same for them? I want to be careful what I say and try and be as neutral as possible and not offend anyone. But I'd love for Russia to be able to invest, and if at all possible, I'd love for Italian teams like Roma to become military neutral. So I'd love for them to still be able to acquire investment from America and even Russia, Brazil, China, and all over the world, perhaps, and wherever possible. Number 5, again, I hope that there won't be any breaches of rules or laws. So I hope that Roma won't, and also all those invest in Roma who will be part of the club, if they invest, I suppose, having shares and or equity even in the club. I suppose how it could work is if there's multiple nations and investors that are investing, there could be each one could have a small shareholder or percentage each of the equity, perhaps even. So let's say the PIF could invest quite a lot of money, they could have 5 or 10% or whatever it is of the equity, and if Qatar invests less, they could have 1 or 2% of the equity. They might just want to keep that there just in case they can benefit from it in the future or whatever, and they could always up their equity or pull a bit of money out. But I hope they'll stay investing for as long as possible, and even if some pull out for whatever reason, hopefully they'll still have some investment. And maybe they could look at working with FIFA. Again, I know it's a point I mentioned before, but maybe they could look at working with FIFA to say, if they improve the image of football, tackle corruption, crime, and that kind of thing, make sure they do things legally, look at how football could be used to tackle crime, to have academies so young people in Rome and in Italy and across the world even can get into football, especially in Italy itself and in particular in Rome. So they could look at how, in return for having that access to that investment, they look at how football can be used for good and to cut crime and stuff like that, which hopefully will benefit football itself, including FIFA, UEFA, and football bodies and those involved in football. So hopefully they can find like ways that they can lobby sort of FIFA, UEFA, and the international community and international law to ensure that they can to get that investment and that kind of thing. Number 6, as I would love for Italian teams like Roma to be military neutral, for Italy to be military neutral perhaps. And just like I often say, like, I'd love for Italy to be like the Swiss of football. So obviously the Swiss are in the Swiss of finances, or the Swiss of banking. But in Italy's case, it could be like for football, so they can remain neutral and not have to take any sides politically, and in return acquire investment from all around the world. Number 7, I dream that the fans can also invest in the club, and I often talk about like partnership between Italian teams like Roma and Celtic. So I hope they can learn from each other, and maybe Celts could see Roma or other Italian teams as their second favorite team, and vice versa. Italians like Roma fans could, or Roma fans generally could see Celtic as one of their favorite teams, if not at least their second favorite team, and things like that. And maybe they could look at ways they could learn about investment from each other, and like what Roma could learn from Celtic and vice versa about how to acquire investment maybe. And I hope more fans around the world buying the kits and things like that. And another thing I was talking about football for good and stuff like that, and getting people out of crime and also getting people out of violence as well. I suppose violence is normally criminal, but in essence in self-defense, I guess, generally speaking, as far as I'm aware. So it's like the ultras or the football fans who are often hooligans and stuff like that, instead of being hooligans or involved in violence, maybe they could be encouraged to support the club. Some of the older generations could, for instance, avoid smoking, to lead by example, improve their diets, and also get involved in coaching, learning how to coach and becoming coaches in their community and teaching the younger people how to improve their football and improve their diets and that kind of things, which hopefully will help their football. And also they could donate to the club instead of being involved in hooliganism. Number 8, also for tackling prejudice and things like in football, hopefully the club can get a lot of support for that and work with charities, NGOs, and organisations generally, associations and whatnot, that tackle corruption. Maybe work with the Roma Gypsy community and involve those in academies. And hopefully it will help the club to improve its PR and attract investment. Maybe even gypsies themselves, Roma Gypsies, could invest in Roma as well, or donate to the club even, or at least have shares or equity even in the club, even if it's a small amount, even if it's less than 1%. So there could be loads of different investors, and smaller investors could have less than a percentage, like 0.5% or whatever, depending on how much money they put in. So obviously the more money you put in and the more contributions you contribute to the club, I suppose most of that would be financial perhaps, but that would mean the more equity you get in the club. Number 9, I also dream on the subject of fans that they will look at ways to fundraise for the club, like their choreography and things like that, and making videos on YouTube and having fundraising matches and things like that, and maybe even like selling their art and selling their poetry and writing to make money for the club. Things like local businesses as well could invest in the club, politicians, councillors, businesses and whatnot. And number 10, I hope that they will develop as many youth academies as possible for club and country, for the national team and the club team with that investment. And hopefully that will help to help the club financially as well, like save money as well on buying players sometimes. But I have a bit of a dilemma because, as I'm talking about, I'd love for Roma to become the new Galacticos, as they like, the Giallorossi Galacticos. I would love them to be. But I wonder how they could develop young players and still have be able to buy the best possible players and also develop young players at the same time. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, and I hope you enjoyed it, and please let me know what you think. I'm out.